Hello everyone, Minute Plus Meditation here, Friday, May the 27th. In the first reading, at Corinth one night, the Lord said to Paul in a vision, "Do not be afraid, but speak, and do not be silent. For I am with you, and no one will lay a hand on you to harm you, for there are many in this city who are my people." So, the Lord actually appeared to Paul 2 or 3 times, if memory serves correctly, because he needed it. Paul wasn't made of steel. He's a tough guy. I always call him like the spiritual version of a Navy SEAL commander. So, Paul was rugged. He was tough. He's like he chewed up, difficulties and hardships and even suffering. He just ate them for breakfast. Whereas most of us were, so weak and wimpy. We flee or we back away from so many things. Paul was just charging in, but he wasn't made of steel. He wasn't indomitable. He needed encouragement, just like you and I need encouragement, perhaps more. We're all so different from each other. But the Lord gives us that encouragement. Did you know, Bishop Barron actually pointed this out, the words "do not be afraid" in one form or another are in the Bible 365 times. Remember that. Jesus says to Paul, "Do not be afraid." They're in the Bible 365 times. What does that say about our need to hear the words, "Do not be afraid," each and every day of the year, right? I was kind of blown away by that. Is it fluke? I don't believe in fluke. I don't believe in luck. Who knows? But who cares? It's in there 365 times. And probably, not that it's not 365, like you can't say it's, demarcated out for each day of the year, but the fact is God has said it so many times. He wants us to hear this message, don't be afraid. So Paul actually takes this to heart, and he's faithful to the Lord's presence in his life, and he preaches the gospel. That's what you and I are called to do. Difficulties are going to come our way. We should never be put off by this. We may reel from them. They may sort of catch us off guard, but we need to hear those words spoken by Jesus to the apostles, to Paul, "Don't be afraid." If we're standing up for him, if we're doing the right thing, we're going to encounter opposition, but we need to hold our ground. Even if we have to kind of regroup, we need to hear those words, "Don't be afraid." We face temptations, don't be afraid. We may have to get out of there or, resort to prayer, but don't be afraid. We're down and discouraged, don't be afraid. All those things are so important for us. Okay, over to the gospel. So Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, you will weep and mourn, but the world will rejoice. You will have pain, but your pain will turn into joy." See, he's encouraging them again. Then he uses the example of a woman in labor. After she has the child, she experiences great happiness. "So you have pain now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you." So this joy is going to be based on, rooted in the fact that Jesus actually went through his passion, his suffering, his death and resurrection, knowing full well what was going to happen to him, that he's completely in charge. But the apostles don't know it at this point. They think he's a victim of circumstances. As one person said, no one in the band expected him to die. Maybe when he was 120 like Moses, but never expected him to die the way he did. And when he was dead, no one expected him to rise again. So there was like 2 huge shock waves in the lives of these apostles and disciples. And so Jesus had to guide them through this and remind them that he knew exactly what was going to happen, and that God's purposes were being worked out, not only, of course, in his human life, his human nature, but the same thing would apply to them as his children, that God would be working out his purposes in the lives of his children. So he says there will be times when we have pain, but we need to keep these things in our mind and in our heart so that they become a source of transforming strength for us and help us to persevere, help us to be men and women of faith so that we don't give up. And this is what all the saints teach us. When you're in a dry period in your life, you keep going. You offer to God, you tell Jesus you love him. Even if you don't feel anything, you're like dry as burnt toast. You tell Jesus you love him and you keep going, and eventually things will get better. It may take time, it may take a long time, But Jesus is never going to abandon you. It's not possible. He loves you too much. God bless you.